Hello everyone, Tactical H here. Got a really fun battle against Anticity. Not sure if he's gonna cast this one after I finish recording this, but whatever, I'm casting this nonetheless. You can see Anticity is coming in with an Acelin missile spam build. Archers, 5 of them in fact, with 4 more Sisters of Avalon all buffed up by the Master of Mist ability that adds 100% range, 25% missile damage, and 20 reload with Stalk and Snipe. So yeah, you can see my units are already in range of all those missiles and are in imminent danger of getting annihilated at range. Other than that, Sea Lord Acelin is coming in with his Star Dragon, or more like a Sea Dragon if you look at the color scheme, with Iron-Handed Captain that helps you rally routed units, and then Master of Mist ability already used up, only 1 use by the way, so that's it. This is the 1 burst damage phase the shooting army gets. And then Potion of Toughness for healing, Star Dragon's Breath comes with the Dragon, and Sea Elemental on the side. So a couple monstrous presence, with a support of Mage of Light there, with of course Net of Amintok and Shim's Burning Gaze. A lot of shooting, a lot of pew-pew from the far side of the battlefield, and my pure melee army is gonna be in a bit of a trouble trying to push against the enemy formation. As for my army, I'm coming in with the Warriors of Chaos and some of their new toys, including the Marauder Bearman and some Slaanesh units as well. Pleasure Guard with Exalted Hero of Slaanesh and a Chaos Sorcerer Lord of Shadows with Tormentor Sword, Melkoth's Mystifying Miasma, and Enfeebling Foe. The Slaanesh hero also have a bunch of debuffing abilities. Disarm, which comes in with some reduced melee attack, and more importantly the Rock of Inevitability, which will be a very big minus 26 melee defense debuff to surrounding units, making them a lot weaker to melee attacks, which I'll be compounding it with the Pleasure Guard, and of course the melee attack debuff of Tormentor Sword and Enfeebling Foe to maybe nuke the stats of 1 or 2 characters. As for the rest of the army here, we have the Chaos Knights with a couple Warhounds for support, 2 Knights actually, and 1 Chimera with the very devastating Breath attack. It also has immune to flanking, which will be quite useful if it's surrounded. Of course, you have heads all over you, so you can't get flanked when there's another head looking behind you, taking care of all the flankers. And of course, we have our favorite monster in the DLC, Vanguard deployed. Once again, Dremel on the battlefield to pressure the enemy missiles. And that's it for our army builds here. Let's look at the glorious missile fire, the torrent of archers raining down onto the Marauder Bearmen at front line. Oh my god. These guys are getting lit up from afar. Even the Chaos Warhounds are getting chewed up. And the Chaos Knights with only 30% of missile block chance. That was not enough to survive in front of those Sisters of Avalon. Of course, having the Knights facing the wrong way, their shields not actually blocking any arrows also doesn't help me. And in retrospect, I probably should have waited for the ability to end since it's a one-time use only skill. Anyways, the Dremel is approaching the enemy formation, and Anticity is responding by shifting those archers around, trying to spread them out, making it harder for the Dremel to target. And of course, just shooting at the Warhounds when they approach too close. The Sisters of Avalon can also beat the Warhounds in melee, so I can't really send those dogs into melee and disrupt the Sisters either. So I'm just gonna send up the Chaos Knight, trying to get them to run down the archers, but I wasn't paying attention to the casters. So yeah, a net is coming in from the Mage of Light right there, stopping those Chaos Knights dead in their tracks right in front of enemy formation, allowing the Sisters of Avalon to now turn around and start annihilating them at point blank range. Warhounds are coming in, trying to shut down some of those archers and the Dreadmaul popping up, but there's only 1 Dreadmaul there. You can only do so much with 1 unit. I'm sending in whatever I can, including the Warhounds, trying to just shut down the archers even for just a moment. Thing is, High Elf archers have martial prowess. You can see these ones beat back my Chaos Warhounds here, with the Sea Lord Acelin jumping in to terrify them away. Finally, this tattered unit of Chaos Knights that got lit up from afar by those archers jumped in, ran down some Sisters of Avalon, and Bearmen and Marauders are pushing in as well. Chimera dropped a breath attack earlier before charging into the enemy archers. Everything from my end are being sent into melee, trying to run down those archers, but there are still some Sisters of Avalon and archers at the back there. Very nicely done by my opponent. Anticity there, setting up layers of archers on his formation. The first line of archers compromised, there's still a second and a third line to keep shooting. And even if I manage to flank with my Warhound, Sea Lord Acelin and the power of Sisters of Avalon melee would be more than enough to beat back my low tier unit. Marauders are pushing into the backline, but Sea Lord Acelin is in the vicinity. Even the Marauder Bearman is struggling to drive back the Sisters of Avalon with the martial prowess. Some archers are holding their ground firing, while others are retreating with the help of Sea Lord Acelin and the Sea Elemental. Chaos Knights are being forgotten here by me. A little bit of a mistake in micro, but all my important melee units are in the fight, basically driving back the Sisters of Avalon, driving back those archers, basically making them stop shooting momentarily. Even the Dremo is just popping up all over the battlefield, chewing up archers and sending them into a run. I managed to break some archers and Sisters of Avalon, but I'm also taking a lot of damage throughout the process. You can see the balance of power is against me right now, mostly because I took a lot of initial shock damage in the earlier phase of battle. Sea Lord Acelin being hit by an enfeebling foe with the Pleasure Guard nearby, quickly running the hell away. I definitely want to pin him down right now, so Melkov's Mystifying Miasma 25% speed debuff, with Pleasure Guard hot in pursuit. And my double characters are in as well. Unfortunately, my Tormento Sword is on cooldown. I used it earlier to stop the archers from retreating, so I can't use it to pin down Acelin right now. There are still some tattooed Chaos Knights and Warhounds still nearby, so I can probably send them over to hunt down the enemy routing and retreating archers. Good news is that some of these archers are breaking and shattering. Bad news is that there's still a lot of them around, and they have the ability to crossfire and threaten my units. The Dremo is now under fire from multiple archer units, quickly dropping it back underground, and it is out of range. Actually, wait, no, I'm using deep tunneling, popping up in the middle of a bunch of Sisters of Avalon, with the Chimera dropping a breath attack onto another unit of Sisters, doing damage and stopping them from keep shooting, just trying to keep the Sisters busy. On the other hand, unfortunately, I didn't manage to do much damage to Acelin, and he was back into the skies. I'll be retreating with my Chaos Knight and the Pleasure Guard, trying to deal with these pesky archers. Marauder Bearmen are trying to run after the archers, but this is where the Sea Elemental comes in handy, disrupting the push of my infantry and also terror routing them away when they are... Wait, these are Bearmen, so they don't terror route due to immune to psychology. Never mind. Anyways, Pleasure Guard are hunting down the Sisters of Avalon and archers, being much faster than their high elf targets. While the Exalted Hero, my characters also have the ability to just disrupt enemy shooting for now. Marauders are pulling back because they're still quite far away from the archers, and there's a good chance they might get caught by Acelin and get routed quickly by the terror on the dragon. Unfortunately, they're still not escaping from the grasp of Acelin, and the Sea Dragon will be dropping onto him. At the same time, the Sea Elemental has routed a bunch of my infantry, and I'll be throwing in my Goon Squad, the characters, and the Pleasure Guard trying to deal with it, though I'll be quickly changing my mind with these units. I figure the Sea Elemental is less of a threat with these archers right in my face, shooting at my Pleasure Guy, who doesn't have the most armor, by the way. Yes, they have missile block chance, but with how fragile they are, I'd rather them not take any unnecessary damage if possible. Chimera is still just working overtime to try and hunt down enemy units by flying around there. Marauders will be going after the Sisters of Avalon to basically disrupt the enemy shooting. Archers over here and the Sea Elemental, everything is just disrupted by the Rock of Inevitability. Plus a Melkov's Mystifying Miasma. I just really want these archers dead, and the Dremel popping up as well. So these archers are probably done for. I'm also trying to fight the Sea Elemental there, who is suffering from an enfeebling foe with its melee stats nuked, and the Exalted Hero of Slanesh is doing some pretty good work against it. If I can surround it with my Pleasure Guard, I should be able to deal with them no problem. On the edge of the map, some very healthy Marauders are actually terrified by Acelin being chased off the map, a pretty big loss for me in this kind of late game scenario. Now the archers are freed up and will be providing fire support once more. At least in the center, the Sea Elemental is fading away with the crumbling effect, the elemental instability doing damage to itself. Crumbling away, and as its HP gets low, it summons up an Oceanic unit, so I figured there's no point fighting a summoned unit, so I'll be pulling back my troops to wait out the summoning timer on those Oceanids and hopefully let the Sea Elemental go down on its own. But it seems like Anticity has a really neat trick up his sleeve. The Iron-Handed Captain here, rallying the Sea Elemental, stopping the crumbling, and also boosting the leadership back up over 100. And that means the Sea Elemental has stabilized and continues to survive and fight for a little bit longer, while the Pleasure Guard eating a breath attack from Sea Lord Acelin there. Unfortunate, but it is a damage that can't really be avoided. While there are some Sisters of Avalon and archers firing from afar, I'm quickly pulling them back to try and drive back some other pesky archers who actually shattered away. Good news for me, I guess. But right now, the Sea Elemental is surviving and still just haunting the battlefield. After using wait, it can still use another split up ability? Damn, okay. Anyways, Pleasure Guards are just following closely my characters here. Some archers routed, and that actually led to a chain rout, causing friendlies nearby to rout as well and shattered them. While over here, Marauders are being hunted down by Aislinn once again. Basically just trying to clear out all my infantry support while I still have one Chimera hunting down archers over time on the far side. Probably better to just regroup with the other Chaos units at this point of battle. Instead of one last breath attack though, blasting into some of the archer formation here, doing some pretty nice damage. Dropping some of the archers into routing territory. While on the far side, Shim's Burning Gaze picked off one of the Pleasure Guard and a net, pinning down this unbreakable unit, but the archer fire support are not in range just yet. The archers are still walking over, but at least it stops the Pleasure Guard from pursuing the Sea Elemental. And now a breath attack plus some follow-up shots from those Sisters of Avalon, taking a chunk of health out from those Pleasure Guard. The Pleasure Guard are now down to less than a quarter of their HP, but this is not over for them. They are indeed unbreakable, so they will be fighting down to their very last snake person. They still have over half of their models intact, so they can still do quite a bit of damage if they can get a charge. While the Chimera unfortunately getting caught by Aislinn for a bit there. Now it's trying to retreat away from Aislinn and his dragon, regrouping with the remaining characters and the Pleasure Guard, who just got hit by a Shim's Burning Gaze. Sea Elemental still surviving, just hanging out on the far side, knowing that it doesn't really want to commit until in a decisive fight, seeing how low it is, especially if they get surrounded by his Pleasure Guard. That's gonna be GG for that rather depleted Sea Elemental. Anyways, it is getting close. I'm sending over some hounds and even my characters over to try and deal with it, but unfortunately it is a little too fast for my heavily armored characters to catch up, while the Sisters of Avalon are nearby to start shooting at my expensive monster, especially the Dreadmaul, who still have quite a bit of HP left, and a net of Emmental, pinning down the Chimera under the Sisters of Avalon fire and Aislinn's melee attack. So I'm sending the Pleasure Guard over to quickly dispatch these sisters, while the net has worn off, so the Chimera is landing on the ground. My double character is, even the Sorcerer Lord is jumping in. Of course, the Slanesh hero is in the vicinity as well, just dropping in a bunch of debuffs here. Rock of Inevitability, Tormentor Sword, Enfeebling Foe. Aislinn now has 11 attack and 10 defense. And it is under basically a triple team by the Chimera, by my two characters. At least the Sea Elemental is returning to help out, while the Pleasure Guard pummeling those poor sisters there. Still are Aislinn, no melee stats, but still holding strong with over half HP, over 6,000 HP left. Balance of power is in favor of the High Elves, but here comes a rear charge from the Pleasure Guard, devastating flanker, boosting the charge bonus and annihilating the HP bar of Sea Lord Aislinn. Half of his remaining HP already gone in mere seconds. Shim's Burning Gaze, a desperate attempt to kill off my Pleasure Guard, but they manage to get enough damage onto Aislinn, routing him off, with the Sisters of Avalon drained down by the Malkuth's Mystifying Miasma. Dremel still being relatively healthy, keeping up the balance of power, and the Sea Elemental will be surrounded and slaughtered in this double team character fight. One last hit by the Pleasure Guard's finish Sea Lord Aislinn, and the Sea Elemental will be fighting alone here. We don't count the Mage. The Mage of Light doesn't do much melee work. And that shall be GG with a victory for the Warriors of Chaos and their new toys. GG to Anticity here, a very cool battle with an almost campaign-ish all-archer army, excluding the single entities of course, and still giving me a very hard time in battle. Annihilating a ton of my units from afar with the Sea Lord Aislinn ability, boosting the damage from all those Sisters of Avalon and of course the range, and doing a lot of good damage, but unfortunately it's just a build problem. It flew a little too close to the sun as a meme army, and I was able to get a win because of that. The Dreadmaul didn't actually do that much and took a lot of damage from the archers, but most importantly is the Pleasure Guard carrying the day here, just basically driving their way through all those archers, and in the end catching Aislinn on the ground with all those debuffs popped on him, thanks to the Exalted Hero and also the Sorcerer Lord of Shadows, and just annihilated him in melee combat. The rest of my army actually didn't do a whole lot. If not for the Pleasure Guard, I probably would have lost this one, because Aislinn on a Star Dragon is still a very tough force to reckon with. And yeah, that's it for today's battle. I hope you all enjoy this rather meme army battle with a machine gun High Elf army. And we'll be coming back with more Tides of Torment multiplayer battles, so be sure to subscribe and keep an eye out for new videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Tactical Lich, signing out.